Hello!
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
We have returned. The video is up slightly later than normal because we didn't watch the episode on time. But we were smart and did not engage the social media and get lots of spoilers. Which, full spoiler alert, because we're going to talk about last night's episode.
Full spoilers.
We're going to talk about all the books. We're going to talk
half
about
spoiler nonsense. We going in.
We're going to talk about theories.
Theorems.
Stratagems certain characters might strategery. We're gonna answer some fan queries we received because
And by queries we mean one,
but we're gonna answer
start
it
somewhere
because we said we would. So if we can't keep track of one,
they're just like, we're not even gonna pretend we gonna.
Yeah, I mean, what they assume. Okay, so. We're going to try to make this video a lot quicker. Happy Memorial Day. In as much as it can be happy to remember fallen loved ones.
Today was Rosh Hashanah.
But we know you're all enjoying your barbecues and your grillings and your pools and whatnot. And I'm going to be doing that here in just a little bit. But first off, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones.
Yes, we are.
For the four people who care.
I guess it would be now. Now would be a good time to introduce our guest of the day. The one, the only, Jackson Rathbone.
I don't think Jackson Rathbone is on set, which is also my house.
You were supposed to email him.
I don't have his... Oh, was that like jrack1519 at yahoo.com that you sent me the other day?
Yeah.
Didn't know that was Jackson Rathbone.
Damn it.
He wasn't that really god-awful adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender.
I've done my best to forget that. But on to the show.
Anyway,
okay, I've got it pulled up right here in the order that it went.
So this episode did not start at the wall. In fact, there was no Jon Snow this week.
Yeah.
Which probably means we're going to get extra snow
in
the next 3 episodes.
For the rest of this season.
It started north of the wall.
North of it.
And Bran is still being downloaded. So in the last video, we talked about how we weren't, while watching it, entirely sure what was going on as to why Bran had, suddenly gone back into the warg state with the Three-Eyed Raven. I think that was just, one of those first time watching it, you're not quite clear because a lot of stuff's going on. Essentially, what it is that the Three-Eyed Raven was desperately trying to upload everything to Bran. So Bran is still in this at the beginning of the episode. He's still warging out, seizing up, and he's having flashes of what I assume is the history of the world. I mean, and he's seeing all kinds of things. He saw Daenerys and the birth of her dragons. He saw it was dope. He saw Jon fighting the Walkers. He saw Hardhome, which was a great episode, so good on him. He saw that Valyrian steel can defeat the Walkers because he saw Jon kill the White Walker.
Let's get to the most impressive part.
There were two very impressive parts. The one that was obvious is you see the Mad King, and he's saying, "Burn them all." And you see the pyromancers preparing the wildfire, and you see Jaime Lannister stabbing the Mad King, becoming the Kingslayer.
I'm convinced they filmed all that in season 1 and just didn't know where to put it.
But you also see Ned Patrick Harris.
You do.
He says, "Where's my sister?" And it's the Tower of Joy sequence. And then you see
Sean Frankenbeans.
You see what I assume was Lyanna Stark's hand covered in blood, with Ned's reaching out for hers. So we did get a little tiny bit more of the Tower of Joy within that. So that was a really cool sequence. But as cool as that was, we didn't really have time to catch our breaths because immediately following that, out of nowhere, rides in a book character that all of us thought was not going to be in the show.
I was kind of disappointed too because I enjoy the character in the books.
He comes in and he's got the flaming,
he got a
flail.
It's not even it's more like a tiny. It's like a ball at the end of a chain that I think had some blades on it, and then it just caught ablaze.
And it was.
And when the whites were descending upon them, he rode in and was just not today, and just started whacking all of them. Like, honestly, he'd have been real useful last week before, Hodor got killed.
Essentially, for those who haven't read the books, the character is called Cold Hands, and he's sort of undead. He's someone who should have died and partially did, but the children of the forest were able to keep him alive, kind of. So he's kind of undead.
Yeah, I feel like
he's a half zombie.
The most fearsome kind of zombie.
But
yeah, he was dying because the White Walkers killed him,
and so the children,
and then they stopped it by because as we saw last week, they created the White Walkers by shoving a piece of dragon glass in their heart. So apparently that can also stop the process.
Yeah, so the dragon glass is really magical. So
yeah,
and there had been a lot of speculation from fans for years in the books, because this is a character that popped up in the third book. He actually popped up way earlier and helped Bran and Mira get to the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven in the books, but they didn't do that in the show. That's why people thought he wasn't going to be on the show.
I'm kind of upset he wasn't riding his dead moose creature.
Right.
People
have been assuming that maybe
it was live. They then ate the moose.
That maybe he was Benjen Stark, but it had never been confirmed. So this is another show spoiling the books moment here.
I had assumed he was Tony Danza.
Well, there was some evidence to the contrary of it. Maybe he wasn't Benjen Stark, but I always kind of thought he was probably Benjen Stark. So it wasn't really a shock, but it was kind of cool to get that confirmation. And so he's basically like, yeah, Bran, you're going to have to go to Castle Black, and you're going to be prepared to fight the Night King, and you're going to have all the tools you need. I've been working with the Three-Eyed Raven. You're the new Three-Eyed Raven. I feel like we're going to get a lot more. And it was cool to see two Starks see each other again. I mean, this has been a season of resurrections for Starks.
They're winning, yo. They're winning.
It's a season of resurrections for Starks, a season of reunions for Starks, and it could be potentially leading up to another resurrection.
Season of Fuster Clucks for Lannisters, but we'll get to that later.
So so we had the stuff with
Hornhill. Yes.
Hornhill. Yeah. Okay, so
that place looked awesome.
It did. It looked really cool, and sort of unlike. I mean, not that the Water Gardens actually wasn't a beautiful location, because it was.
I mean, it was
but unlike what happened in Dorne, where Dorne was made out to be just like the Water Gardens in a couple of tents in the sand, this, actually, Hornhill looked really cool. That looked like a really cool castle, like a really cool whole place to live. And Sam's family we get introduced to, his mother.
Nice lady.
His sister's very sweet. His brother.
His sister looks just as doofy as him, but
his
sweet.
Brother seems like he's probably a nice enough guy. He's just
as nice as one can be with the name Dick on.
Yeah, he's a Westerosi jock. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's just
they aged him hella up though, because in the books that kid's 5.
But Sam sitting there talking to his brother about hunting,
we hunt north of the wall too.
That's a fair distance.
What do you do? Deer, elk, rabbits.
That's me at every family reunion with people asking me when I want to go hunting and fishing. That's that out of placeness that Sam felt. That is totally me. So I related to that. Gilly cleaned up really nice. She's a pretty girl.
Yeah. For a second, you didn't realize it was Gilly. You're like, is that another?
I didn't. I was is that another?
Gilly, bro. That's Gilly.
Is that another sister? Yeah, but it was Gilly. And then of course the dinner went straight to hell, like we all thought it would.
Yeah.
His dad was a big old piece of crap.
Big old douche.
It's not even real. I mean, it's kind of sad that you see Sam. We know he has so much agency now, and he's grown so much as a character, but he still can't stand up to his dad because that's just, we all have those things.
Suffered a lot of abuse as a child.
And we all have those things, we can't stand up to for whatever reason. But I did think it was very...
Mine's clowns.
I think it was really cool that he was able to, there at the end, make the right decision. Look, screw this, screw protocol. I'm taking you with me. I'm not separating this family the way my father separated my family. And the most significant, it was really cool that he's he can come after us, he can bloody well try. But the most significant moment of that was that he took the sword, the ancestral sword that should have gone to him, which is Valyrian steel. It's called Heart's Bane. He took that sword with him. So that means now Sam has a White Walker slaying tool at his disposal. So,
not gonna lie, I'm kind of impressed that he had like physical strength to actually just like pick it up and hold it like it was nothing. Because he doesn't strike me as the type who can just lift great things.
A sword of greatness.
It is.
And so moving over to
his dad was real disrespectful to Gilly. He's like, "Oh, you a wildling. You ain't nothing but filth."
Well, when he was
should have known my son wasn't even balling enough to go pay a prostitute. He had to get with a wildling scam.
Well, when he's like, she was a wildling whore. I'm like, okay, rude. First of all, she's a wildling. You don't know anything about her sexual promiscuity.
Exactly. There was because she's only been with 2 people, one of which was her dad.
I mean, it's best not to mention that to old buddy either. Okay, so
I mean, his king is a child of incest. Hey,
I mean, So going over to Arya gets to see Act 2 of the play. So we kind of got
Arya, the newest enrollee in the SO School of Juilliard.
Yeah. Arwada, Westerosi Academy of Dramatic Arts. So we got, last week, we got basically seasons 1 and 2 from the perspective of the Lannisters.
Disrespectful.
It was disrespectful. And then this week we got seasons 3 and 4. So it's a sort of a meta recapping of things. It's kind of poking fun at the audience.
Yeah, if you haven't been here until this season, this is going to give you a...
This is what people claim. It's kind of meta because this is what people think this show is: just mindless nudity and violence and vulgarity and bad guys win and good. And this episode did a little bit to kind of turn some of that because Lady Crane is such a good actress that Arya actually felt bad about Joffrey's death in that scene because she played Cersei so compellingly. And so Arya goes to do her thing. She poisons.
I didn't have any emotions towards
I
was just like, I love that episode, especially when he was like foaming at the mouth. I was like, yeah.
Well, it was funny because when we were watching the play both weeks, we were like, that is not how that happened. That is definitely not how that happened. But then when Joffrey
kind of how that
happened.
Minus the whole Tyrion doing it on purpose. You're like, no.
Yeah, that was disrespectful. But so. She poisons the drink or whatever, and then she decides against it, and she knocks it out of her hand. In that moment,
and then she snitched, like she's trying to kill you,
and ran away. Yeah, and then she gets needle, so that is symbolic. She could never throw away that sword that Jon gave her. That's part of her identity as Arya Stark.
She realizes that winter is coming, and the lone wolf will die without the pack. She knows.
So. Her getting that sword back, refusing to kill ostensibly an innocent woman.
Yeah, nobody's innocent.
We don't know that Lady Crane's innocent, but to Arya's perspective, refusing to kill what she seems to be a good woman. So
her dead father would be so proud.
And so Jack and Hagar, or as I call him, No One, because if you actually try to track it, I don't think that there's a way of knowing if that's really Jack and Hagar, if Jack and Hagar was ever a person anyway. But No One, Jack and Hagar, is basically telling the waif, who I really hate the waif.
I hate her so much. Hate her. She was not as annoying in the book.
No, she wasn't.
Although she was actually also a small child in the book. So
Jack and
this chick, I hate her.
Is basically yeah, she failed. I knew she would fail. Please, you promised I would get to kill her. We finally actually see Jaqen taking a face off.
It was built up
for a year and a half.
They
finally showed that part of it, how we remove the faces. So the last 2 weeks, they really doubled down on the mythology. They explained where the Faceless Men came from last week.
Yeah, I like that.
And they explained the Hall of Faces. And so now we've seen everything we need to see. Arya's made her decision.
Can I just say that the waif reminds me of a medieval Regina George from Mean Girls? I don't like her.
Yeah,
I don't.
Kind of.
And she, she's just a horrible person.
Yeah, she's terrible.
She's on Tuesdays, we remove faces. I hate you.
And so, one thing, episode 7 is next week, and the week after that, episode 8 is called No One. So I feel like we're going to get the big showdown there with Arya 2 weeks from now.
Like, no one in the House of Black and White was expecting Arya to put her down so cold, which she will.
So, Walder Frey came back.
Argus Filch.
And wasn't it great that he's bitching about how they've lost River Run, and he goes, "Unfortunately for you all, I'm still alive," and that was totally aimed at the audience for sure. And so he sends,
I found it funny because I was like, not for much longer.
So he sends off these lackeys or whatever. But the most significant, I think you would agree with me here, the most significant part of that was that he mentions the Brotherhood Without Banners wreaking havoc.
Yeah, we have not seen or heard from those dudes since season 3.
So Zombies Ruin Everything, who is a friend of ours, runs Zombies Ruin Everything, asked the question on our last video. What about Beric Dondarrion? Now, I don't know if he enjoys long walks on the beach or anything like that, but Beric Dondarrion...
I think when he's not, killing his enemies and getting resurrected, he likes to contemplate.
If you guys remember, the significance of Beric Dondarrion was that he had been resurrected many times by Thoros of Myr using the powers of the Lord of Light. So that was the show's kind of like, foreshadowing in Season 3 of Jon's resurrection at the hands of another Red Priestess, because Melisandre had talked to Thoros. That's how she knew it was possible. She even references Thoros. We know that Thoros is coming back this season. I don't think we're going to see Beric.
No,
to answer
Beric's
your
gone.
question,
Beric
the reason that I think we're not going to see Beric is because I think Beric is dead. Now,
for good this time.
In the books, so again, spoilers if for some reason you're still watching. In the books, at the end of the 3rd book, we find out that the Brotherhood Without Banners had come across the aftermath of the Red Wedding, and they were looking for Robb Stark's body because they wanted to resurrect Robb. They could not do that because his head had been removed. Disrespectful.
Dude, though.
And
what if they just been like, to hell with it, and resurrected
like
him?
A headless...
But no, with Grey Wind's head on it.
I don't know how that would have worked. That would have been really frightening. He would have been the young wolf.
Forever young.
Too soon.
I didn't tell you to hold the door.
Think on your sins. But so... I think Beric is dead, so I don't think we're going to see him. I think the Lightning Lord in the book, he sacrificed himself to resurrect Catelyn Stark instead. And Catelyn is sort of this, like, she got her throat slit, so, like, she's all zombified and gross, and she can barely talk. She can talk if she holds her vocal cords together. And she's really...
You just sounded like a 60-year-old woman who's been smoking, like, 3 packs a day, like, hello, honey.
Hey, honey, here you go, honey. It's the Waffle House waitress.
I love Game of Thrones.
And Catelyn is essentially, in the books, this really angry zombie roaming the Riverlands in charge of the Brotherhood Without Banners, and they call her Lady Stoneheart. And when Jaime and Brienne both converge in the Riverlands, Stoneheart comes into play. And, we were expecting to see her at the end of Season 3. We expected to see her at the end of Season 4. Then we kind of gave up on it. And then I kind of, thought, well, maybe the reason they didn't do this is because it's such a... As interesting as it is, it's such a minor subplot so far in the books. And we were thinking maybe they didn't want to one-up or... tip the hat too much about what was going to happen with Jon. You don't want to beat people over the head with the resurrection. You hope that Jon's resurrection was still a little bit shocking for some people, especially people who didn't read the books. I feel like it was probably more impactful. But, so to answer your question, Zombies Ruin Everything, I do not think that Beric will be back. I don't know where Beric is. If he's alive, I don't know where he would. I just don't think we're going to see him. I don't know if Stoneheart will be in the show, but hey, we thought we were going to get Cold Hands 3 seasons ago, and we didn't. This is the season of resurrecting Starks. It is the season of, reunions for Starks. It is the season of revelations about Starks, and this story has always been about the Starks. So, the way that they're doing the Riverland story from the 4th and 5th books that they skipped over last season...
I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm so glad they're finally getting this because
this is what Jaime was supposed to have done and Brienne. This is what they were supposed to have done last season if they had been following the 4th and 5th books, but they skipped it.
Instead, they give me nonsense with Jaime going to Dorne, which people online seem to believe was always supposed to happen because it's what he did in the book.
If you're not
no, he didn't.
If you're not a book reader, you won't understand our.
I assumed they thought like Eris Oakhart. They just weren't paying attention and they thought it was Jaime. Because that's the only thing.
A knight of the Kingsguard had gone to Dorne with Myrcella. But
who's still alive?
But the whole Dorne storyline was completely different in the books.
It was good,
and it was really good. It was really interesting.
Good, and the TV shows just bad.
For some reason at the end of season 4, there was this big thing on Westeros.org where all these supposed big book readers were talking about how they couldn't wait to see Jaime going to Dorne, and that was well before season 5 had anybody had even hinted that Jaime in the show might go to Dorne, and we were like arguing with people like. He doesn't go to Dorne in the books. What are you talking about? And these people are like, yes, he did.
I don't appreciate the fact that the show made me wrong about something that I was right about.
Yeah, and then the show like had him go to Dorne, and that was like the biggest eye-rolling moment ever. And of course, we all know, with the exception of like Jaime and Bronn. Bronn's coming back next week. Yes.
I just thought he was dead, honestly. I thought he died of like dysentery on the way back.
Yeah. But, yeah.
It's an Oregon Trail reference for those of you that get it.
Not to go, I always died in the river.
I always got attacked by wolves.
Mm.
I once caught smallpox, I think.
That's hate.
Yeah.
So, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but to answer the question, I think that, yeah. And also to answer the other question, were we aware that there is a YouTube channel called Across the Narrow Sea? Not surprised, was not aware, but our channel is not called Across the Narrow Sea, just the show is called Across the Narrow Sea. So, I mean, if they want to come after us with the big guns, we have no money.
Also, we'll just be like, you don't even own the rights.
Yeah, they don't own the rights to words Across the Narrow Sea, so... But,
now, I mean, if we were calling ourselves, like, the Small Council, I feel like...
The Stream TV might have something to say about that.
Yeah.
But they have like, really hot women and hot production value, so I don't think that's... We would bow to their technical prowess. So, moving along...
King's Landing. Or do you want to save that for last? Because honestly, I wasn't that impressed by what happened with Daenerys this episode.
Okay, so... I guess we'll talk about King's Landing.
Alright.
Okay, King's Landing. Okay, so... Essentially...
King's Landing is going through the equivalent of the 2016 election cycle right now.
Tommen goes in to see Marjorie. Marjorie is like...
I hate him.
I've seen the error
of my ways.
Which is totally an act. I don't buy it for a second.
Oh, no.
Tommen, though, is completely seduced by this act.
He's weak! So weak.
Marjorie's playing Tommen. She's playing the High Sparrow. I honestly don't think the High Sparrow believes it. I think the High Sparrow is like 5 steps ahead of all of them and has been the entire time. But I think...
Because the Crannog men all...
Right, they attack from behind. I think that basically the Tyrell army shows up with
Mace
Jaime.
Tyrell looking like a fat doofus.
He had ball and armor minus the feathers.
Yeah, and the feathers didn't make any sense. Your sigil is a flower.
He gave an inspiring yet unnecessary speech.
Man.
And then...
Jaime was kind of just sitting on his horse like, can we wrap this up?
But Jaime rode that ball and horse up those...
He looked majestic.
Balls. And then essentially Tommen comes out and he's like...
With his new fancy Faith of the Seven Kingsguard with their nonsensical
like,
7-pointed star symbol.
They're joining of church and state armor. And they're like, the crown and the faith of the twin pillars.
They're the twin pillars that hold the world together.
Tommen is
I have never seen a boy so weak since... Honestly, Draco Malfoy wasn't even this weak. Like, the boy is just a discipline. What happened to Tommen at the beginning of the season? Help me to be strong, mother. Now he's just like, Marjorie, you get to come home. Yay. Where's Sir Loras at? He's still getting brutally beaten in the cellars.
Well, there's still going to be a trial by combat. It's still going to be the Mountain versus his brother, the Hound.
True. Then Even more disrespect. This is the second time since season 1 that the Lord Commander has been dismissed from the Kingsguard, with Tommen like, when you attack the faith, you attack the crown. And Tommen was like, I have to listen to the gods. And Jaime said one of the things that I agree with the most, not when you sitting in that chair, you don't.
And on this show, I wouldn't be listening to any so-called gods, because it would probably just be Bran.
No.
I would not be listening to gods.
I'm not saying it'd be Bran. I'm like, these people are like, Bran is the Lord of Light.
He is not the Lord of Light. That's not a thing. But if you hear in whispers, it might be Bran.
In reality, if you hear in whispers, you need to go to a doctor and get that checked out, because you hear voices and you are in danger.
So, yeah.
But, hey, at least Jaime's going to the Riverlands now, so.
Yes, he's going to the Riverlands. Finally, he's back on pace. We know Brienne is headed there.
He's released from his vows of the Kingsguard, which technically makes him Lord of Casterly Rock.
Right.
So, technically, by the genealogy, if Tommen dies, technically Jaime Lannister would be king of Westeros.
Well, and what if that's true? It's true.
It's better than Cersei.
Also, what if he just gets there, sees Brienne, and he's like, you know what?
Bruh, what if
I don't even want to get involved
screw
in
this Riverlands nonsense.
I'm going to
He's going to see Brienne. She's going to be like, I found Sansa, we need help. And Jaime just takes the entire Lannister army with him, and they go north, and Jon Snow's got the Lannisters, some of the Northmen, probably the Lords of the Vale. Ramsay Snow, Bolton, Snow. He's not ready.
They're going to need it, because...
and let's be honest, Jon's going to have the Umbers, too, because I'm still not convinced that Small Jon is a traitor.
Because the Walkers are coming.
Ooh.
Okay, and then so finally, I think the last thing that happened in the episode was Daenerys. Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this. Because, yes, it was cool. Yes. The dragon...
It was magnificent.
The dragon looked awesome. The whole...
It's grown.
How to Tame Your Drogon is just... God. That subplot...
Oh!
Got my pun in this week. They
just keep getting worse.
That whole
kind of like the Dornish.
That whole thing is really cool, but yes, she gives the great speech, and it's a recall.
It was a wonderful speech,
but
just as how not Howland Reed, just as like how Mace Tyrell gave a great speech. I'm still real unimpressed by you.
But it was not the type of speech she normally gives. It was a speech to warriors, not even promising them a better life. You're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to kill everybody. We're going to go kill everybody.
We're going to kill the men in the iron suits. We're going to tear down their stone castles.
And
you're going to help give me the chair that Khal Drogo promised.
And Dario had said, you are a conqueror.
It's true.
Daenerys Targaryen. And
Daenerys
so she's
is a conqueror. I'm sure there are people out there like, we can't wait to see Daenerys rule. Daenerys has never actually ruled anything effectively. She conquered Astapor, she conquered Yunkai, she conquered Meereen, and she stayed in Meereen. And as we've seen with all three, they all go south.
The problem
so quickly
is that
she doesn't know how to rule.
The problem is that she's impulsive, and she doesn't seem to have any grasp of or sense of pragmatism about her at all. It's, I'm going to do what I think is right, and I don't care how many people die because of it. Right. I don't care how screwed up the situation gets, and that's what's happening. The Civil War in Meereen is because Daenerys has made terrible political blunders, and
she's got
Tyrion's trying to navigate it because he realizes how silly some of the stuff Daenerys did was. Now, here's the thing. I have very specific thoughts about this because, and Logan can attest to this, from almost day one, I've been saying Daenerys is the villain of the show. Almost from day one. I think Daenerys is going to end up being the Mad Queen. I do not think Daenerys is going to be the hero of the story. I think the hero of the story is Jon. And I think that by the time we get to the end, it may not even be something that most people are conscious of because we've been following Daenerys as a hero this whole time. But I think Daenerys is going to start doing less and less heroic things and more violent. And I think it's going to we've been seduced into thinking that we're following a hero's tale, but really we're following a villain's tale. And I think that what we're going to find out going forward is that Daenerys has a lot more of her father in her. So I think it's interesting that we saw her father in this episode at the beginning, and then she bookends it at the end, sounding very Mad Queen-esque. So while it was cool...
I mean, she's got too much of her father in her, and Jon's got just enough of his father in him.
Yeah. So some people might have a problem with that assessment of Daenerys, but I think that that's where it's been heading the whole time.
They can have a problem with it, but the facts speak for themselves. Like, everywhere she's gone, she's honestly done nothing but leave a pile of dead bodies in her wake. Like,
and Tyrion tried to warn Jorah.
And the only time the only time where I was like, hey, man, do what you do, was when she, left Zarozo on Doxos in that tomb.
Yeah.
I don't I agree with her, slavery is wrong. People shouldn't be slaves. But you can't just free the slaves and then not expect, you can't get rid of something and not put anything in its place to help people ease into something else.
And as satisfying as it might have been from a knee-jerk reaction standpoint, crucifying the masters was incredibly stupid, too.
Yeah. Especially considering not all of them had agreed to crucify the children. You were just oh, well, you're a wise master, so you're a bad guy.
Yeah, so I don't think Daenerys is going to view herself as no one views himself as the bad guy. I don't think Daenerys will ever outrightly
I feel like we're getting
admit
a lot of hate
to being a villain.
We just talked about slavery and how people should do a better job because I'm black. There's going to be a lot of hate. I don't care.
I don't think that the show is going to be haha, look, she's the villain. I think that you're going to have to read between the lines and realize that the things she's doing, she goes too far. And I think that by the time that we get into the Great War for the Dawn, which is most assuredly coming, we're going to start to see a lot more of this unfold.
I like Daenerys. I don't hate the character. But honestly, I see where this is going with her. And at this point, I just kind of need her around until the White Walkers are dealt with. Then I'm okay if she just,
goes crazy and gets killed.
Because I want Jon Snow on the Iron Throne. Because he would be a better leader than any of these other foes.
So, the only other thing that I wanted to talk about this week is
how to make the perfect bundt cake.
Previewing next week.
Okay. People need perfect bundt cake recipes, bro.
I'm sure that somebody would have a perfect bundt cake recipe, but next week, episode 7, The Broken Man.
I can't believe we're already on episode 7.
I can't either. I think so episode 7 is called The Broken Man. Episode 8 is called No One. Episode 9 is called Battle of Bastards. Episode 10 is called The Winds of Winter.
I love how Benioff and Weiss got that out before Martin did.
So that gives us an idea of what's coming next. I think next week we're going to see the return of a character everyone thought was dead. At least one, maybe two. I think No One is going to be the episode where we really get a lot of the Arya conclusion with the Faceless Man. I think Battle of Bastards is going to be just full-on battle for the North. And Winds of Winter, I think the White Walkers are going to finally approach the world of men. So I think that's where we're headed.
They're going to blow that majestic hole in the wall. They'll come tumbling down.
So, let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, share the video. If you have more questions or comments, or you want us to do videos about other things, you can let us know. And even if it's only one person asking for it, we'll try to do it. So, until then, Valar Morgulis, and
that's Spanish.
It's not.
Italian? French? German? No?
I mean, I don't know what the base language that came from. But
anything else? Man, just good episode. Not as Not as exciting as
it
last
was. It was a
week,
breather, but we're gonna need it.
Yeah.
It was a breather. We're gonna need.
Oh, we forgot to mention the return of Ed Mirtulli.
Oh yeah, Ed Mirtulli, who has been locked up the entire time. What a terrible fate that is.
I mean, let's be honest. Even if he had been out and about, he was real useless.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, this is the man that was like, I recaptured a windmill, King Rob.
Let's also not forget that he represents the second returning uncle of the Stark children in one episode. So, because he is Catelyn's brother, so he is the uncle of all of these
Blackfish next week, though.
Blackfish. So,
yeah. So,
I think
have a good week. And remember, if you ever hear whispering, it's probably not Bran Stark. You're probably being haunted by a crazed gypsy demon. So, the night is dark and full of terrors.